Hey friends! I'm back for another update. I don't know how I'm already doing another one of these. Like, it feels like the weeks are flying by at this point, and yet if I stop and think about it, it's going so incredibly slowly all at the same time. But yeah, I feel like I just wrapped up the week 22 update, and here I am with week 23. I actually made myself a little list of things that I wanted to talk about this week. So it might be a longer one. I hope not, but it might be a longer one. But the reason it is because once I go back and edit these videos, I realize, man, I totally forgot to talk about blank that just happened this week. Or this happened a couple weeks ago and I never talked about it. I just totally forgot. So I figured if I had a list, it would like keep me on track. So first off, I think that the last thing we talked about in the previous update was that we were gonna go that coming weekend to Kohl's because some of the Kohl's have started popping up little like mini Babies R Us boutiques within the store. And we happened to have one open close-ish to us. It was like a county away, but like pretty close to our county. It was about a 45-minute drive. So we went this past weekend and it was great to actually look around and see baby things. There are so many things that we use with our son that are like just not available today for whatever reason. And then there's a bunch of new stuff that we didn't even know existed and apparently is very popular and very common these days. So it was nice to be able to go to one space and see all of these things. I'm not gonna lie though, we did spend most of the time focused on the really cute baby girl clothes. It's funny because we had always said, and we were talking about it then as well, that when my son was about to be born, there were so many cute little boy clothes at that time, and it seemed like little girl clothes was really lacking in cute. And now that we're about to have a little girl, it seems like the baby boy clothes is suddenly so simple and like kind of blah, but the baby girl clothes is so flippin' adorable. And it could just be bias, right? It could just be that we find it cuter because back then we could imagine having our little boy in these clothes, and now we can imagine having a little girl in these clothes. So that could totally be it too, but I feel like there's definite seasons, right, where sometimes the girl clothes is cuter, sometimes the boy clothes is cuter, and we just happen to be in a season where the girl clothes is really cute. Speaking of our little girl, my husband has been talking to her and singing to her for weeks and weeks now, but we realized this past week that if we want to get her to move, all my husband has to do is sing to her and she will move. I've tried to get her to move countless times, and for the most part, she ignores me. But she's already a daddy's girl, and whenever daddy talks to her, she gets really excited. So obviously my husband's loving that, and I think it's really sweet. My husband has, like, constantly, anytime we go anywhere, somebody's bound to tell him, you have a great voice for radio. Have you ever thought about going into broadcasting? And we have a parrot at my parents' house that seems to only ever want to mimic my husband. He just has one of those voices. So honestly, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that our daughter is also drawn to it. We got a new couch, by the way. I did mention that in the last video as well, that we were awaiting its arrival last week. It is here. We've had it for a full week already. We love it. It is so much more comfortable than the one we used to have here, to the point that my husband and I are actually spending some time sleeping out here rather than in our own beds, because even with a sleep number, the couch is still somehow more comfortable than our bed. It pulls out, like it has like a trundle, so that the entire couch, the entire sectional, basically becomes like a bed. And I can confirm that we have had 4 full-grown adults, plus my 13-year-old son, who's not full-grown yet, but on his way, comfortably laying on this couch. So comfortably, in fact, all at once, by the way, that both my husband and my dad fell asleep out here at once. So that just shows you how comfy this couch is. Speaking of comfy, you guys know I've been complaining, kiddo's here by the way, so is his sock. I've been complaining for weeks about back pain and how it's made it impossible for me to lay or sit anywhere, and how I'm having a really hard time sleeping as a result. I got myself a new pillow because hubby was out of town early this week. He had to go to a funeral somewhere else in the country. And so I took advantage that he wasn't here, and I used his pillow for a couple nights. And his pillow is like a really, really dense memory foam pillow, which I typically don't care for because I don't like my pillows to be that firm. But it turns out it's exactly what I needed because it aligned my head and my neck and therefore my back in such a way where, along with all the other pillows and accessories I have, I've actually been comfortable for the first time in a long time while using this pillow. So I went ahead and ordered my own. It arrived, and since I've been using it, I'm not saying I'm sleeping great, but I'm sleeping loads better, noticeably better than I was sleeping before. So if you're having a similar problem, I'm gonna go ahead and link the pillow I bought in the description box in case it's helpful to you. And then something that's happened that has not been super, super great is that last week I had my doctor's appointment with the ENT, the ear, nose, and throat specialist, and we were going to follow up on whether the more natural, just alcohol and vinegar drops were enough to take care of my ear infection, or was I going to have to move on to like an antibiotic or a steroid, something that my OB already cleared as being safe, but that I'd rather not have to take that risk on because it's like, it's safe enough as far as we know, but it's not 100% safe like vinegar and alcohol is. So the hope was that my ear infection would be cleared with just the alcohol and vinegar, and we would never even have to try the med. So we went to the doctor's appointment, and sure enough, as soon as she looks at my ear, she's like, "You're cured. It's perfect. The vinegar and alcohol worked. We don't have to touch the medicine. I'm so excited for you. This actually worked. This is great." Like, she could not stop talking about how fantastic my ear looked and how happy she was that the natural route worked, right? So that was Friday. That was a week ago today. Yesterday afternoon, suddenly and without warning, without provocation as far as I know, I suddenly realized while I was preparing dinner that I couldn't hear out of my left side. It didn't feel stuffy or irritated or inflamed or anything. I just literally couldn't hear. So I thought, that's odd. I still have some of the alcohol and vinegar solution. Let me go ahead and put some in. So I did, and it burned like hell because it always does. It's alcohol and vinegar, so obviously it's like an irritant to your skin. So it burns, and it did. But once the burning subsided, I realized that my actual inner ear hurt now. It hadn't hurt before. And in fact, the last couple months I've been dealing with an ear infection, it hadn't hurt whatsoever that whole time. It was just feeling stuffy, like congested almost, but it didn't hurt. I was at no point in any pain. Then I was in pain after the drops. The pain lasted about 20 minutes, and at no point did my hearing recover. That was yesterday evening, last night. This morning, I still can't hear out of my left side. So I messaged my doctor because the way that the system is set up, if I were to call the office, I would actually end up talking to somebody in a completely different building. They'd have to send a message to my doctor's office. Whoever reads that message would then have to contact my doctor, etc., etc. It's like a lot of moving parts. I instead went onto the portal online and messaged my doctor directly so that either a nurse in my doctor's office or the doctor herself reads the note. And I explained everything that happened, everything I did, everything I felt, etc. I'm assuming / hoping that she will tell me I need to come back in, because if I must take this medicine, I will, right? Because I must. And the OB already cleared it. But I just don't want her to say, okay, well, obviously it didn't work then. Let's go ahead and start this new medicine if potentially this is something new and different. Because it feels different. Like I said, I never had pain before, and I'm suddenly in pain now. And also, you saw me less than a week ago and determined that that infection was clear. So then what is this? This is obviously not the same infection if last week it was not there. So I just don't want to medicate this and it turns out that it's something different altogether. So that's the update with that. Not a fun update, but it is in fact what's going on, so felt the need to tell y'all about it. Gonna go ahead and show you guys the stuff from the app that little girl is up to today, or this week I should say. And yes, new updates about your baby and body are available. I know. So according to the app, little girl is about 11 inches today, and she's weighing about 1¼ pounds. That's possible. She was already weighing over a pound. I think she's a pound and an ounce last week at the anatomy scan. So I'm assuming she's weighing obviously at least a pound and a quarter this week. Because she is measuring ahead in some areas. So officially now I'm in my 6th month of pregnancy. That does not seem correct or proper or real, but it very much is. Because it's late November now. Late December is another month, to late January, to late February, and then I'm due late March. So yeah, I guess from November to December is my 6th month, December to January is my 7th, January to February is my 8th, and February to March is my 9th. I never understood the 9 months pregnant when there's 40 weeks, because that literally mathematically does not make sense. If there's 4-ish weeks a month, 40 weeks would be about 10 months, right? And yet we always say 9 months pregnant, even though that's not the thing. But anyways, I'm officially in my 6th month of pregnancy now. So baby is at around 11 inches. My television just heard me say that I'm in my 6th month of pregnancy and it congratulated me. This thing is freaky. I don't like this TV. It listens too much. Anyways, 11 inches long and just over a pound. This week marks the beginning of some serious weight gain. Your baby should double her weight over the next 4 weeks alone. That's so cool. Baby skin and organs. Her skin's a little saggy since it grows a lot faster than fat, but soon she'll start to fit her frame as the fat deposits fill things out. And it says that our baby's heartbeat is so strong now that you'd probably be able to hear it through a stethoscope, which is pretty wild to think about. As far as my symptoms are concerned, it says that at 23 weeks pregnant, your back may be aching. Yeah. Your mind may be fuzzy because of all the progesterone, and your feet could be growing. I haven't noticed my feet growing, but I guess not everybody experiences that. Or, I mean, there's still 3 months of pregnancy left. Maybe the time will come. You might be prone to heat rash, skin tags, and stretch marks. Skin discoloration like la línea negra. I never developed that with my son, and so far I haven't developed it either. Again, there's still time. Skin discolorations. Your freckles might get darker. Possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm very freckly, so that's definitely possible. And that's pretty much it. I feel like there's not a ton for them to talk about right now, because at this point, all of her systems are in place. She's just growing. And next week, on week 24, is a pretty big milestone that I've been very much like anxiously looking forward to. At 24 weeks, in some cases by 23 weeks, so even potentially now, but typically by 24 weeks, that's what they call the week of viability, meaning that if heaven forbid something were to happen where my water would break or what have you and I would go into labor as of next week, little girl has a chance of surviving all on her own. So that's pretty huge. Like that's a big deal. So I'm very, very excited for that. And I'm, like I said, anxiously awaiting that milestone. Because it just, after all these losses that I had, it's just such an incredible deal that this is happening at all. But to consider that we're already at a place where she could potentially survive and thrive on her own already is almost too much for me to wrap my head around. And since we're talking about that, baby girl is apparently as big as a carrot. That makes no sense to me whatsoever, considering how, you know, just a couple weeks ago or even a week ago she was as big as a basketball. Like, how do you go from being a basketball to a carrot? But okay. She's as big as Peter Pan's hat. Do with that information what you will. She's as big as a pink milkshake with whipped cream from Greece. So if you've ever been to like a diner type situation and seen one of those big old milkshakes with the whipped cream on top, again, I don't know how that's comparable in any way size-wise to a carrot, but fine. She's as big as a Furby. That's wow, and as big as an American football. Now, forgive me, I'm not super, I love watching sports, but I definitely don't play sports. Is a football bigger than a basketball? Because I feel like a basketball is probably bigger than a football. But somehow we're as big as a football this week, even though we were as big as a basketball a week or two before. I don't know. Also, she's as big as a medium-sized water bottle. I don't know what constitutes medium, but okay. Like a 16-ounce bottle, perhaps? I don't know. The last thing I want to show you guys, I thought this video was going to be much longer, honestly, considering everything I wanted to talk about. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is the bump. So here she is. I don't know if it's much bigger. Whoa, I'm having to like get on my tiptoes so you guys could see. Much bigger than last week, but I definitely feel rounder, at least when I'm looking down at myself from up here. This all feels rounder. And my husband loves pointing out my bulbosity. He's absolutely obsessed with my belly and how round and bulbous I am. He loves it. So I think that's adorable. Me and my bulbosity, just walking around being all bulbous and stuff. So this coming week, actually, I just realized we do have an OB appointment. We were meant to see her the day after Thanksgiving, but I guess she's not going to be in the office that day, so we're seeing her just before. And I do have a list of things that I wanted to make sure to talk with her about because I feel like they're important things to like establish moving forward. So I wanted to ask about birthing positions. Basically, like, what am I allowed to do based on the hospital and based on her? Again, assuming she'll be the one to deliver me, which is very unlikely at this point. But certain hospitals have restrictions on, like, you can't be in certain positions, period, or you can't be in certain positions once you've had an epidural, or you can't be in certain positions past a certain point in your labor. At least that's how it was 13 years ago when I had my son. And I feel like the answers to these questions are going to be either really big green flags or really big red flags. So that's why I want to ask now while I still have time to change practitioners and change offices if I need to. South Florida in particular is very, very, very cesarean, like, I don't want to say cesarean friendly because it's not a friendly thing. They kind of push you into it. I can't even say that they encourage you to do it. They push you into cesareans every opportunity that they get. And if I must have a cesarean, I will, but I'd rather have an actual chance at a VBAC, at a vaginal birth after cesarean, especially considering that I know for a fact I'm a great candidate for it because they checked me and like they internally checked my uterus, etc., to make sure that it was strong enough to withstand a trial of labor after cesarean. And it's been far more than 2 years since I've had my last birthing experience, since I've had my last cesarean, etc., etc. So I know that I'm a good candidate. I want to make sure that I'm walking into an environment that supports me even trying, rather than knowing off rip, like the moment you walk in here, we've already pretty much made up our mind that you're going to have a C-section no matter what you do, no matter how anything goes. So I want to ask about the birthing positions. I want to ask under what circumstances they will insist on internal monitoring, because we did internal monitoring with my son because I was too big for the outer monitoring to work while I was in labor with my son. Like it wasn't, I guess there was too much belly for them to be able to properly measure my son's heartbeat throughout the entire labor. So pretty much what they do, trigger warning because this is rough. As someone that experienced it, it is rough. And if you're pregnant right now, this could be scary, but this is how it works. They basically put a very, very long metal plate inside you and screw it. I'm not being funny or like overly dramatic or scary about it. It's literally how they do it. They screw it into the top of your child's head. And that's how they monitor your baby. And it's just as uncomfortable as it sounds. Obviously, it's extremely invasive, and who knows what effect that ended up having on my son neurologically. So I basically want to know, I'm hesitant because I don't want to straight up tell her, if you say to me, I want to do internal monitoring, then I'm going to say, forget it then, let's just do a C-section. Because I refuse internal monitoring. I simply will not do it. But I don't want her to then, or anybody, to use that against me then. And like as soon as I walk in, they'll be like, and by the way, we're doing internal monitoring just to push me into a C-section. So I just want to know, objectively speaking, what criteria must be met or maybe must not be met before the hospital will insist on internal monitoring. And lastly, I want to know about the RhoGAM shot. Do I need to do it this time or not? Because I am negative. I'm a negative blood type. I keep going out of frame because my son's literally like battling me with his feet and I'm trying to keep him out of the frame. I'm a negative blood type. And because they don't know whether baby is negative or positive, if our bloods mix while I'm giving birth or what have you, it could be bad. It could be really bad. But the thing is that I believe that it's only really, really bad as far as like if I'm gonna have more kids in the future, then it almost sets up like I become allergic to new kids kind of a thing. I'm really oversimplifying it, but it's something sort of like that. It like it sensitizes me. It makes me sensitive to foreign bodies, including babies in my uterus in the future. Seeing as I'm not planning on having any more kids, must I do the RhoGAM this time around again? Because I've had so many RhoGAM shots between my son and all the losses, etc. And also, perhaps there's a way now, I believe there might be a way now, where they can tell whether my daughter is a negative or positive blood type. It's only dangerous if she's positive and I'm negative, which we know I'm negative. But I don't know if they might be able to wait until she's born and then decide if I need the RhoGAM, because typically RhoGAM is done at 28 weeks of pregnancy. But I wonder if there's a way to delay it until we know for sure I need it, or I just want to know my options. So basically I want to bring those 3 things up so that I know my options, and based on what she tells me, I could then decide what I want to do and how I want to proceed. So that and Thanksgiving are the 2 things that are coming up in the next week. And I'll let you guys know how both go. But for now, I think it's time that I cut this video. Yeah? So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. And I'll be back next week with a week 24 update. So yeah, I hope you're subscribed and I hope that you're enjoying these updates. And we'll chat again really, really soon. Bye.